and welcome to the Word Traction Daily Podcast. This is UAE Rocks the Casbah. Earlier, 4 or 5 hours ago, the UAE announced that they were leaving OPEC and OPEC Plus for well, for their stated reasons matter not. Why are they actually doing it? Why is it now? I mean, you've probably heard about some military operations going on in their neighborhood. That is a precipitating factor, but they've been eyeing this idea for quite some time, and this is perhaps an opportune, excuse me, moment to move forward and sort of exert their independence from their evil stepbrother in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We talked about earlier in the week the competitive nature of these two big dogs in the Middle East, and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, MBS, UAE, MBZ or MBZ. These are two of the richest men in the universe. As we talked about, I don't know if that was on the weekend, whenever that was, that UAE has been gaining leaps and bounds from a sovereign wealth perspective. They've been gaining on their brother to the whatever the fuck direction in the Middle East pretty steadily because they have a spy sheik, and they have it seems a more aggressive and successful investment strategy in areas other than just pumping black gold out of the ground. So their wealth fund has been growing at a faster clip than that of their, but that's all relative. These are extraordinarily wealthy countries, and when we factor in, projected oil reserves out 10 years or however you want to slice it, that the total wealth of these potentates is measured in the tens of trillions of dollars. Right? So of course that just it adds a little tickle to the overall silliness of MBZ coming to Trump and the IMF and asking for a handout because things are tough. But we'll get back to that in a minute. For those that aren't deep into Middle Eastern politics and with a finger on the pulse of the petroleum markets internationally, OPEC was formed in the beginning of the 60s, 60, 61, 62. UAE wasn't as an original member because a lot of these countries, we have to remember, Kuwait, which was a founding member, some of these were only formed in that decade or decades before, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, at the beginning of the 20th century, and a lot of strife, a lot of land trading, a lot of imperialism in there, trying to hold on to what they couldn't have fully appreciated, the value of those oil reserves at that point. We talked about earlier in the last weekend about the historical reference to one of my favorite imperfect humans, but OGs, Winston Churchill, and his relationship as he was the I was going to say viceroy, but that's Marco Rubio's future role in Cuba. He was the head of Her Majesty's fleet, the equivalent of our naval secretary. maybe Lord of the Admiralty. How is that? I like the sound of it, even if it's incorrect. But the general idea that what Churchill was focused on at the turn of the 19th century and going into the early 20th was when things were getting a little chippy in the World War One arena, and switching over the fuel for Her Majesty's Navy from coal-fired furnaces to oil, and needing a reliable supply that couldn't be messed with by your opponent. Then it was oil, and it was exploitation of Iran, of Persia, and all of the nasty business that followed that, in CIA plots and in CIA interventions in the 50s and 60s, and all of the other bad things that we covered on an earlier episode. But I'm sure we'll get back there, because Iran is not going to leave the news feed for some extended period of time. The price of oil, end of the day yesterday and again this morning, ticked back up again to hit $110 a barrel. Right, that was on the. I don't remember if that was on the Brent or the New York, the NYMEX crude. Don't know, don't care, doesn't matter, because it's an international market, and the prices essentially get blended. The cost, if you need a barrel of oil today, is going to be substantially higher because of the uncertainty injected into the market by your president that fucked around and found out that you don't do this without having a plan. What a freaking concept. You employ war planners, you employ regional experts, you fire most of the latter, particularly the ones with the core competence in the Persian Empire. So you've got people that are well-intentioned, perhaps, military officers and deep thinkers, but you got rid of the core competence of that group that handled that part of the Middle East. And it's different it isn't the same thing for the Far East and the Middle East. It's a different dynamic. It's different relationships. It matters who you want, the guy or gal from the gal whose name I'm going to completely miss, the magnificent Princeton professor, Iranian. Yeah, anyways, you want these people because you need to be able to think what happens at lunch today and the implications for 25 years. Pastor Pete Hegseth is not going to do that. He's going to, as we talked about yesterday, he can rely on his friends at Palantir and at other places for real-time data and for advanced AI with autonomous weapons layered on top of it, and all of the beautiful toys that have to do with 2026 warfare. They can do that, but there's no strategic planning at all involved. Again, the gentlemen and men and women that went to West Point and have the advanced degrees in these things, all respect. That I can't do what they do. I did not go to West Point. I did not go to the Naval War College. Much respect to these people. That's not who's leading the Pentagon right now. Many of the people, if they have anything better than a light tan, which I need some sun, obviously, have been tossed from the Pentagon, because obviously anybody black or brown needs to go immediately, because that offends, as was well reported in the last few weeks, that, well, we can't. Donald Trump wouldn't like standing next to a black female military officer if there was for instance, King Charles and Camilla are visiting the White House right now. Was there a military procession that included senior leaders out of respect for this a real sovereign that came to visit our sovereign and try to not talk about his brother's Epstein exploits? Good luck. The Charles has been maintaining very good discipline on that subject. Camilla made a comment the other day that would have shocked Melania, perhaps, but she was sort of, a maybe a non-specific comment, but perhaps with specific intent, talking about the importance of showing empathy to victims of physical violence and sexual violence. It would be so helpful for the king, in light of his brother's behavior, not the accusations against the former Prince Andrew, but the proven behavior of his brother. I'd say let's just say fuck the Your Majesty shit for a little while and try to be human. The lives of these victims, and we've been reintroducing ourselves to many of them recently. We are going to be doing a lot more of that because they've been so poorly treated by our Department of Justice, by Todd Blanche, by the former Pamela Joe Bondi, by Kash Patel, by all. They've been so poorly treated, so disrespected, that there's going to be explosions coming out, and they should be scared because they've had their personal details released in a malicious and harmful way by law enforcement in the United States, which is despicable, and wish we could punish them for it, but we know that Trump is not going to. But it now, it's going to go down, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. But we all have to focus on what is it that what do the women that were girls at the time of the atrocities, what did they want? Right? One of them, to take it back to the UAE and leaving NATO, one of the most prominent individuals named was a senior member of the royal family of the UAE. And there are many other names that are going to come out, whether they are owners of professional football teams. They are business leaders. We've learned a lot that we probably hope we would never learn about the sexual proclivities of the founder of Microsoft and the persistent nature of STDs. A lot of things we didn't. They're kind of just make us feel icky, I guess, as the kids never say. But it's gross. Not sexual contact is gross. Intimate sexual contact with underage persons is beyond gross. It's repulsive and illegal and should be punished. And there are many jurisdictions. We learned recently some additional information of what they tried to do in New York to get some settlements to get money in the hands of the women that were abused. There is no statute of limitations, at least in Florida, on certain crimes involving the sexual exploitation of minors, thank God. But in other places and in other jurisdictions, it varies. So I'm not going to make any blanket statements. Much of the corruption that's going on now, what I'm hopeful for is that the New York State Attorney General can punish the Trump family for that with state prosecuting state crimes because the pardon doesn't mean shit when it comes to state crimes. So that comes later. That isn't today. Today we focus on the victims from the Epstein files. What does this mean for oil prices, business in general, international relations in the Middle East with UAE leaving? I was going to say NATO. They're not a member of NATO. Leaving OPEC and OPEC Plus. OPEC Plus, by the way, is just an additional number of hangers-on that produce some amount of oil in their country, and they are privy to conversations. It's monopolistic. It's a cartel, but think about it in a way to compare it to many of the large corporations in the United States that are monopolies. They want to keep control of prices so they can manipulate the prices and earn more money in good times and in bad, as far as the global economy, international, disasters and wars, which happen, I've heard. So that's what it's for. It was, again, it's the 60s. The UAE joined in 67. Excuse me. Abu Dhabi, part of the UAE, joined in 66 or 67. And then they switched the name on the plaque to UAE from Abu Dhabi at some point thereafter. It doesn't matter. Now they're going to leave. What does that mean? They want to be an independent contractor. They don't want to be forced to sell oil at what the cartel says the price of oil is. They don't want to be affected, because it's important to remember that they're the redheaded, their evil cousin in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the biggest player in OPEC. It goes number one, Saudi. Number two, Iraq. Not when missiles are flying overhead, but if we look back to just look at some 2025 numbers. Let me just say, Saudi Arabia, 10 million barrels a day. If we rely on a $10 million number, what do we say about Iraq? Half that amount. And UAE was at peak numbers. If it went 10, 5, well, let's give them 2 and change. Something like that. Not as big as their evil cousin, but a substantial amount. Their proven reserves are not as substantial as Saudi either. But they want to go out on the open market and make deals that serve their purposes. And then there's there has to be a corruption tie-in because of the relationship, as we talked about before, and you read in your news feeds as well. There is a corrupt relationship between the United States, specifically the Trump family, the Wyckoff family, and Jared Kushner, and the UAE. The amount of money that they've poured into Jared's company, the amount of money that has gone in, out, through, and over the UAE into Liberty Financial, which is the Trump family digital coin. I was going to say joke, but it's not a joke when it has $1 billion in it. It's a lot of money. Now, the problem with this also is that our relationship with them means that we're also, when you're in a corrupt relationship like that, let's go back. Let's make it a warm and family friendly analogy, right? So let's say that a founder of a international corporation uh, catches chlamydia, sexually transmitted disease, from a Russian prostitute sent to him by Vladimir Putin and then shared among the Epstein class. What do the wives of those affected misbehaving adult male individuals benefit from this relationship? Not too much. It's oftentimes it's really high doses of penicillin. So you may be solving other medical issues, but we know we've all been warned about building up tolerances to penicillin. So you don't want to use it too frequently. And with the behavior of various people named on the Epstein list, we know that that was something that played a part in for some founders of major tech companies here in the United States. It's really it's delightful, a wonder to behold how these people operate. Not saying that they are the only people in the world that suffer from such weaknesses to have illicit relationships outside of their marriage. But with 14, 12, 10-year-old girls, no, that's the Epstein class, as the wonderful Senator Ossoff, I think, coined that term. That Epstein class. That is who your Republican Party is supporting. The big beautiful bill. Their support of anything that Donald Trump wants to do. They're taking this tragedy that happened at a Hilton in D.C. and using it to justify adding U.S. taxpayer dollars to Donald Trump's White House ballroom fund, care of Lindsey Graham. Now, Lindsey Graham, I'm not going to suggest that Lindsey was involved in the on the Epstein list because he, Peter Thiel and many others, have different interests. We'll just say, right? So Epstein trafficked almost exclusively in female children as opposed to male children. In any case, so this is your party, the Republican Party, supporting the Epstein class and further bilking the American people, their base, out of tax dollars for the exclusive benefit of the President of the United States, saying if this event had been held at the White House in my new ballroom, this attack never would have happened because it would have been Secret Service protection. He had Secret Service protection there, and of course the White House Correspondents' Dinner ain't going to be ever held at the White House. Otherwise, it won't be a White House Correspondents' Dinner. That is kind of antithetical to it's already what's going on with the Ellisons and with consolidation more generally in the media. Does it make any sense to have the White House Correspondents' Dinner without comedians taking the absolute piss out of a president? I mean, Kimmel obviously has been he was going off the cue cards and having a good old time the other night, which was delightful. And of course, Trump and his wife, and I'm sure Brendan Carr is going to be writing him a letter, and it's going to be the same silly shit as the last time. And if Disney wants to get hit with another round of collective action, go ahead. Let's make it let's make it fatal this time. If Disney if Disney fucks with Kimmel over comedy again, let's all, even though those with young kids or with grandkids who are friends of Mickey and Minnie may hate us forever, but they already do in a way because they've seen what we've become and how we behave, and that we failed to protect them from devices that we know are dangerous to them. They will, if they don't hate us now, they will eventually, and they should, because we didn't put into place something like they are doing now in Australia. That again will make kids angry. How can you do this to us? Whatever. But this is a point where we have to do something, and we have to be the adults and impose our will on that subject. We have to kneecap the leaders of these large platforms, Zuckerberg and Bezos and all of those guys, and say, no, no child under the age of 16 should be able to establish an account. And you guys can handle this because you have the access. If Zuckerberg said that which would be another lie that coming out of his fucking mouth, but if he said Meta doesn't have the technology to do age verification for users, that would be impossible, and it would be mean to expect us to do that. That would be like you're like victimizing us as we make tens of billions of dollars off of the backs of your children, right? Yeah. Well, how about this? They can call Palantir. They're doing it every day, and they're establishing, as we talked about yesterday, a database that can tell you your, you know, you want to talk about granularity, right? They can tell you what, you know, what size condoms and IUD you purchased. They can tell you things about you that you forgot, and it's forever. Kind of like uh, back to chlamydia, maybe that some of those just last forever, and that's kind of what we're dealing with now. So, and I just got way off of track, but I could not be more delighted to have another opportunity to take shots at social media companies and our brothers in Riyadh and in Dubai. So these guys have not been having a good time with missiles flying through their hotels and damaging, killing people, damaging their real estate, and Dubai was enjoying this sense of invulnerability. This is the magic city where everything's possible. If you have $1 billion, you just come here and live, and no rules, and you do whatever you want to do, and we'll keep you safe. And that was annihilated, re-obliterated, if you will, in the words of your fearless leader, Massengill Mussolini. So they're going to go off now and say, no longer constrained by OPEC. They're going to use that in some way to say to the United States that if you want cooperation with us on X, Y, and Z, and oh, by the way, we hooked up your kids, what we need from you is that $27.5 billion backstop, because you gave it to fucking Melee down in Argentina, and what does he do for you? Right? What's he going to do? Give you the freaking Falkland Islands? What is Argentina? Beautiful women, excuse me, beautiful humans, good soccer, a few great soccer players, good wine, really good polo ponies. What else? Yeah, they got some good stuff. Got a lot of lot of beautiful human beings that speak Spanish like they think that they were trapped in an Italian movie theater for a couple years, and then see what happens. Yeah. So they're going to say, Donald, Don, can I call you Don? Okay. So you're ripping off the United States Treasury to the tune of billions and billions of dollars to advantage your own family. You don't give a fuck about the United States. You don't give a fuck about your voters. So why don't you just set us up? We need some cash. You owe us because we hooked up your sons, and we'll work with you on price fixing of the petroleum market any day you want. And you need a little help going into the elections, Donald. Don, can I call you Don? Because today, the average price of a gallon of gas in the United States hit $4.25, and you're going to be in serious fucking trouble in the midterms. You already are, Donald. Do you want to make it worse? Because the tail, if you make a deal tomorrow with the Iranian, whichever faction of the IRGC, the current regime, the former regime, the wastrel son of the Shah that's living in Virginia, anybody you make a deal with, it's still going to be fractious. And Bibi's still killing Lebanese like it was a video game. So how long is if you make a peace, how long is that peace going to last? Don, can I call you Don? So that's the kind of thing, because these are the UAE and the spy chic are not, this is not their first time out of the house. These are sophisticated business people who are not above. I mean, this is the leader, MBZ, and this is a separate issue, and you can do independent study, or maybe if I want to really piss off some people in UAE, you can look into the history of how their supreme leader, right, MBZ, treated his children, his daughters, how the ones that didn't want to be part of the regime any longer, right? Talk about like a Tower of Babel. It was not good, like house arrest and brainwashing and all sorts of crazy shit like that. So these are sophisticated people, but these are not pussycats. And Donald Trump, again, he's got some badass figures around him too, but their main focus is to get as much money as they can into Don Jr., Eric, Barron, and Jared Kushner's bank accounts, right? Because they know it may be coming to an end. These are just the guys that can help them with that. And if you think about, if you take UAE before they just withdrew, where do they rank in overall petroleum production worldwide? Are they seventh? Are they eighth? They're top 10? We'll give them that. And it's kind of skewy on the gas side because of partnerships and joint access to particular fields, And then they're with the gas, the other Qatar and the other countries in that area come into play. But and there'll be dissension. Will they feel empowered to do more nasty mercenary activity in Sudan now that they are independent operators and fully transparent on what their goals are with Donald J. Trump? Is Donald Trump going to stand up for the human rights of the Sudanese who are being murdered by the Rapid Response Forces? No. Donald Trump does not care. Donald Trump does not care about black people in Africa or in the United States. breaking news, right? And then the OPEC plus. If you think about it, a fun fact, Africa, if you say, again, I'm going off the top of a broken brain, aged, decrepit brain, but let's count, let's say Africa's 50, it's 53 countries or something like that, right? That half of that, just slightly less than half of those countries are Muslim majority countries. Okay. So we'll say half of 50 is 25 in the old math, and OPEC plus is about, I guess, about that number of countries too. There's Gabon and just a number of other countries that you don't think of on a daily basis, but they produce a little bit of oil, Muslim majority, and we have a president who is invading, the Islamic Republic of Iran. They're not. I'm not saying that many of the Muslim countries in Africa are close allies of Iran, but are they in favor of a white Christian nationalist crusaders attacking Muslim countries after they've seen what they look at Bibi Netanyahu and they say, that's an American killing Muslims in Gaza, killing Muslims in Lebanon, right? Remarkably, you think of countries in that region that have kind of made a power sharing arrangement. This is not UAE and this is not KSA, but Iraq and Lebanon are two countries where Shia, Sunni, and other share power to a certain degree, right? Lebanon, Shia, Sunni, and Christian, right, are involved in the government. Obviously, Hezbollah, that complicates things. If you look at Iraq, Kurdish president, Shia prime minister, and a Sunni head of something else, director of operations. You know, trying to make it work, trying to work it out. Kind of like us here at home, trying to even out that wonderful political dynamic without culture, not allowing culture wars to overtake our ability to enjoy our families and our daily life, just trying to live the dream. So short term, it'll be a fun watch because there will be 100,000 different takes on what it means, and as usual, about 10% of those will have some validity, and realize that I'm being attacked by some sort of flying pterodactyl. That we got a spy sheik who is very active. The spy sheik, the thing about him, all of the tremendous success they've had with their equivalent of the sovereign wealth fund in UAE, the spy sheik is the finance guy. He's the financial wizard. So he's driving their tremendous growth in diversified energy too. They know Trump kneecap all green energy. Bad economically, bad environmentally, bad on every level. Bad from a national security perspective. He's harming the United States of America in so many ways. But in energy, he's killing us. Trump is. He's getting money from the petroleum industry and he's returning favors to those that donated to his campaign, right? The large the petrochemical industry more generally. He's rewarding them. You know, loyalty, you got to be 100% loyal to DJT, in which case he will be, 10 or 12% loyal to you, but it's better than zero. And he's antagonistic, as you have learned, towards anybody that isn't one of his boys, right? He's not neutral. He's against you. He's fighting against you. Liberal press, liberal whatever, the Nora O'Donnell. Now, did Nora need to read the entire, the insulting points of the manifesto to him on 60 Minutes? People will debate, it, assuming, that is now regime media, uh, surprising. But I'm not going to take a position. I'm not going to. Certainly, she's a pro. She's fantastic. Did the in their production meeting, could they have gone about that in a way to emphasize other points of the manifesto that seemed less like a personal attack? Even that neat little the rhetorical device that she used to say, "Oh, did you think he was talking about you?" When he said rapist and pedophile, you thought the boy from Torrance was referring to you, Mr. President? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Right? You can't. Even Trump couldn't get away with that kind of bullshit. So yeah. So we'll look at it's part of like an ongoing episode of The Girls Are Fighting, which is KSA and UAE. They will continue to fight. They will continue to say, well, pull up your dress. My PP is bigger than your PP, MBZ. I'm coming from MBS. And that's, doing rich guy shit, right? Got more cars, I have more wives than you have. My airplane's bigger. That's what, boys do that all over the world, right? It's the competitive nature to the point of being disgusting, right? But that is just because it's distasteful doesn't mean we're going to be able to stop it. So we'll watch. We'll be entertained. We'll see how the price of oil goes up and down, whether are they going to reverse course? Was this like a trial balloon to see how A, the market reacted, and B, how Donald Trump is going to take it, and C, an unintended or an intended third party somewhere out there in the audience that I'm not accounting for, that they react poorly. They do all sorts of, UAE does all sorts of shady shit in getting tech to the Chinese against the U.S. interests, right? Chips and fighter jets, right? The intelligence, the components, the actual chips. If not, gee, if you're out flying around, why don't you stop by Dubai, have dinner with me, and we'll go down to the airport and we'll look at the F-35, and you can take some pictures so you can see what the Americans are making right now. I got your back. So yeah, this is a snake pit, which doesn't mean it isn't fun to watch. But with so much corruption here at home, to have unreliable partners layered on top of the unreliable regime that we are led by, it makes decision making and life more complicated than it need be, only for the sole purpose of pleasing a game show host. Remember, it always comes back to that. all the extra bandwidth that you and I, senior leaders in business, and our allies, soon to be former allies in Europe, right? Mr. Zelensky, think about, you got to fight a war criminal over a number of years, and you have to spend extra time in every day, each and every day, to decipher the lies that are coming from an American president regarding the amount of aid and or intelligence he's going to share with you. It's like, oh, thank you, Mr. President. We are so grateful because you sold $100 million of weapons to Germany so we can turn around and buy $100 million worth of weapons from Germany. Thank you so much, Mr. President. We are so grateful to be at the base end of your the proverbial Trump, the short climb on the proverbial Trump scrotum pole, right? We're being mistreated. We're being killed by Putin, who is running a U.S. president who's extorting money from us while we're fighting the guy that's running Trump. Think of just the bandwidth drain of managing that over a long period of time, and layer into that World Cup corruption. Absolutely, that's what FIFA is all about. The second most corrupt organization in the world behind the Trump administration, FIFA. They're coming to town. They're coming into the Viper's Pit to extort as many guests as they can that are coming to visit. It was at 1.5, estimated 1.5 million during World Cup, but there are tons of cancellations because, again, imagine you're a human being from a foreign country and you have a skin tone that is much healthier than this old guy. You don't have any connections. You're not a billionaire flying private. You're just trying to bring your son or daughter to see the World Cup in what was going to be the adventure of your lifetime because of the tremendous expense to come here from, pick a sub-Saharan African country. Tremendously expensive. Now, you didn't have plane reservations. And now the flight that was going to cost you $2,200 is now $2,000 more because of the cost of jet fuel. And they canceled flights. So it's going to be harder to get there. And for the U.S. is going to show appreciation for your patronage, for your spending your hard-earned dollar in the United States economy. How are we going to thank you? By throwing you in an ICE detention facility and saying, hey, sorry, our bad. Right? Yeah, just pick up, we're our bad. We're sorry we made the mistake. Sorry you missed the game. No refunds available. And just get on a plane or a bus or whatever the fuck you want to do and go to Dilley fucking Texas and pick up your son that's held in the detention center down there, where kids are dying on the regular at the hands of ICE for malnutrition, for scabies, bugs, lack of good hygiene, lack of clean drinking water, and miserable nutrition and substandard medical treatment. So enjoy your stay, and hey, I hope you're coming back. We got the Olympics coming in 2028, so book your tickets now. Trump will still be in office, so won't that be great? See you then. Thank you. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, that's your president, our world, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you. I will continue to delight. not looking at the price per barrel right now, but I'm going to, it was inevitable that the price was going to come back up because the problem isn't solved. The tankers, people often forget that the tankers, if you'll excuse me, the tankers that were on the water when this whole embarrassment began, they're in port or they're reaching port. The last few that were out there at the beginning of this misadventure, there's some trapped in the strait. But when they leave the strait, you don't show up in New York the next day. They're not bringing oil to New York, but you get my point that they still got thousands of miles to go with a slow moving ship. They've got oil that people need to survive. But then the next tanker that was already scheduled, it's already in the queue, ain't going anywhere, which means that the impact of this is going to be felt most acutely between now and if it were fixed today, then the greatest, the broadest adverse effects of this entire embarrassment are going to be felt in after Mother's Day, late May, June, just in time for World Cup. So, and this is, you can't flick a switch and say, well, we'll just send you electricity. It doesn't work that way. So it's going to be messy. So thank you. And share, retweet, restack, and subscribe. Tell two friends. And we will be back with you sometime tomorrow. Thank you so much.